After emerging victorious over Levinus at Heraclea, Pyrrhus led his army north and established camp just 37 miles away from Rome's gates. Seeking peace and immunity for his allies, Pyrrhus hoped his strong position would encourage the Romans to accept his terms. To negotiate, he dispatched his most trusted diplomat, Cineas, to Rome with a peace offering. At first, Pyrrhus and the Roman commissioner Gaius Fabricius Luscinus Monocularis reached a peaceful resolution in principle. However, the Roman Senate, seemingly influenced by Carthaginian interests, overturned the agreement, a decision that many attributed to the anti-Pyrrhic speech given by the influential Roman politician Appius Claudius. After being rebuffed by Rome in his attempts at a settlement, Pyrrhus found himself lacking the resources and equipment to mount a siege on the city. As a result, he resorted to looting Apulia and even ravaged the Bruttium region. Interestingly, this move garnered support from many southern Italian groups, such as the Samnites, Lucanians, and Bruttians who joined Pyrrhus's cause. Though Pyrrhus harbored some bitterness towards them for not joining earlier, he ultimately welcomed the reinforcements. With his army replenished, Pyrrhus divided them and wintered in Apulia and Campania. In the spring of 279 BCE, an army of over 70,000 soldiers was gathered by the Romans. Approximately 20,000 of these troops were from Rome itself, while others were recruited from the Central Italic allies. The Roman cavalry consisted of a total of 8,000 horsemen. Dionysius of Halicarnassus mentioned several allies of Rome, including the Frentani, Marrucini, Peligni, Doni, and Umbrians. It is possible that the Marsi and Vestini, who were also allies of Rome, may have contributed contingents as well. The two yearly consuls, Publius Decimus Mus and Publius Sulpicius Saverrio, were in command of this force, and they marched forward to confront Pyrrhus in Apulia, aiming to prevent the enemy from capturing their Apulian colonies. During the spring of 279 BCE, Pyrrhus gathered his army once again, bolstered by a large number of Italian allies. His goal was to finish the task he had left unfinished the previous year by marching northward. The Epirote king had a formidable force of 70,000 foot soldiers, little more than 8,000 horsemen, and 19 elephants, including 16,000 troops he had brought with him across the sea. Although the Roman senator Frontinus estimated that both sides had a strength of 40,000 men in the 1st century CE, Pyrrhus had an army composed of men from the Sprotia, Ambracia, and Chaon, as well as mercenaries from the Aetolians, Acarnanians, and Athemanians. These Greeks were skilled in the Macedonian phalanx battle formation. Pyrrhus also had cavalry squadrons from Thessaly and allies from the city of Tarentum in southern Italy. Additionally, he counted on support from 3 Italic peoples in southern Italy, the Bruttii, Lucani, and Samnites. Pyrrhus had planned to secure the region of Apulia before marching on Rome, so as not to leave a potentially hostile area to his rear. As he advanced northward, he subdued many towns and cities. However, his progress was suddenly halted as he approached the hilly country around the small town of Asculum. There, the Romans had concentrated a large force under the consuls Publius Decius Mus and Publius Sulpicius Severius, with orders to intercept Pyrrhus and prevent him from advancing into Latium. The large Roman force surprised Pyrrhus, indicating that his intelligence network in southern Italy was either flawed or non-existent. Despite typically performing poorly in scouting operations, the Romans succeeded in engaging Pyrrhus on equal numerical footing and on terrain of their choosing. The ground around Asculum was poorly suited for Pyrrhus's army, but he had to give battle in the face of the approaching Roman force. The field was heavily wooded and a small tributary flowed nearby. The environment was too confining for Pyrrhus's phalanx infantry to operate effectively, and the uneven terrain inhibited the numerous Greek cavalry units and elephants. The Roman army consisted of 4 legions of infantry, strategically deployed in a checkerboard pattern with 3 lines at spaced intervals. Among the formation were Italian allies, either intermingled throughout or held in reserve. The 1st Legion, which included Campanians and Sabines, stood at the far left, while the 2nd Legion, including Frentanians, stood at the far right. 3rd and 4th Legion were the central formations, with Umbrians and Volscians among the allies of the former, and Marrucini and Peligni among the allies of the latter. The army was further bolstered by Italian light infantry filling gaps between legions. Meanwhile, Roman and allied cavalries occupying both flanks. The Roman army had learned from their previous encounter with enemy elephants at the Battle of Heraclea. To better prepare themselves, they strategically placed a contingent of approximately 150 anti-elephant ox wagons on each wing, totaling 300. These wagons were equipped with caltrops to impede the elephants' movement, swinging blades to thwart their trunks, and fiery grappling hooks to inflict damage. The design of these wagons aimed to deter and hinder the elephant charge that had previously caused confusion among the legions. Pyrrhus positioned his Macedonian and Ambracian phalanx on his far right, while his Samnite phalanx was placed on the left with support from the Aetolians, Acarnanians, and Athamanes. In the center, Pyrrhus stationed the infantry of his southern Italian allies, including the Tarentines, Bruttians, and Lucanians, as well as native Epirote troops from the Molossians, the Sprotians, and Chaonians. These forces faced the 3rd and 4th Legion of the Romans. While some may compare Pyrrhus' central deployment to Hannibal's at Cannae, Pyrrhus' center appears more disciplined. On the right wing, the Salian and Samnite cavalry awaited, while Lucanian, Ambracian, and allied Hellenic cavalry rode on the left. Pyrrhus himself, along with his royal guard, rode along the back lines, ready to aid where needed. The position of Pyrrhus' 19 elephants is unclear, though they were likely more mobile than in previous battles. Pyrrhus noticed the anti-elephant wagons of the enemy and adjusted his strategy accordingly. Pyrrhus' elephants were also effective at long range, as they were equipped with towers carrying archers. Pyrrhus had turned the beasts into mobile artillery units rather than merely using them as heavy cavalry. In the battle against the Romans, Pyrrhus made a strategic decision not to invest in protecting his side of the river, unlike in the Battle of Heraclea. The terrain along the riverbanks was marshy, swampy, and wooded, and Pyrrhus knew that his phalanx's stability would be diminished in the marshes. Moreover, the heavy elephants under his command would also face a challenging situation in the swampy terrain. Thus, Pyrrhus sought to avoid that battlefield and let the Romans cross the river unharmed. As the Romans crossed the river unharmed due to the lack of investment in protecting Pyrrhus's side, the stage was set for a confrontation on his territory. The initial clash involved the cavalry units on the wings. Here, the Roman horsemen, although skilled in hand-to-hand combat, were at a disadvantage in terms of riding skills compared to Pyrrhus's cavalry. Pyrrhus's right wing, commanded by the adept Thessalian riders, employed hit-and-run tactics, utilizing their superior mobility to outmaneuver and strike the Roman cavalry, often forming a dynamic diamond formation for maximum impact. On the left wing, the Tarentine cavalry, a testament to Pyrrhus's innovative military strategies, employed a different approach. Utilizing their expertise in striking from a distance and avoiding prolonged close combat, they effectively neutralized their opponents with precise strikes, creating chaos and disarray among the Roman ranks. Pyrrhus further leveraged his tactical acumen by targeting the anti-elephant wagons deployed by the Romans. He strategically deployed slingers and archers to rain down projectiles on the crews operating these wagons, disrupting their functionality and causing panic among the Roman forces. Concurrently, his cavalry units relentlessly harassed the Roman formations, contributing to the abandonment of the wagons as the Romans were forced into retreat. There is disagreement among ancient authors regarding the Battle of Asculum. However, due to Roman propaganda influencing the narrative, there are some inconsistencies in the sources that need to be addressed. Plutarch reports that the battle took place over 2 days, with Pyrrhus emerging victorious on the second day. In contrast, Dionysius, followed by Livy, omits the second day and mentions that Pyrrhus was wounded in the arm by a javelin at Asculum. It's believed that the Roman focus on heroism and the deliberate omission or manipulation of Pyrrhus' successes served their interests in creating a glorious memory. All things considered, Plutarch's account is likely more accurate. As the battle unfolded, the clash of infantry proved to be a pivotal phase. with Pyrrhus maintaining a strategic advantage despite fierce resistance from the Roman legions. The absence of flank protection for the Romans left them vulnerable to being encircled, a threat exacerbated by the aggressive maneuvering of Pyrrhus's cavalry from the wings. To counter the threat posed by Pyrrhus's cavalries from the wings, the Roman legions advanced within the enemy's central ranks. This maneuver helped them evade direct attacks from the flanks, but also placed them in a precarious position of engaging in prolonged combat in the heart of Pyrrhus's forces. The infantry clash between the Roman and Greek forces ensued for several hours, marked by intermittent confrontations that lasted no more than 10 to 15 minutes each. This measured approach was necessary to prevent exhaustion among the heavily armed soldiers on both sides. The Macedonian phalanx under Pyrrhus's command proved formidable, easily repulsing the assaults of 1st Legion of the Romans. On the other hand, the Samnite phalanx, supported by allies such as the Aetolians, Acarnanes, and Athamanes, managed to hold their ground against the onslaught of 2nd Legion. However, as the day progressed and the infantry lines engaged again in the late afternoon, cracks began to appear in Pyrrhus's line. The Lucanian and Bruttii contingents faced intense pressure and eventually broke and fled from the battlefield. Witnessing this retreat, the Tarentines, recognizable by their distinctive white shields, also withdrew from the action, contributing to the disruption in Pyrrhus's formation. Responding swiftly to the gap created by the fleeing troops, Pyrrhus orchestrated a well-timed cavalry countercharge to fill the void in his line. This maneuver not only stabilized his formation, but also applied additional pressure on the Roman legions, further disrupting their cohesion and morale amidst the tumult of battle. As dusk began to settle over the battlefield, the fortunes of war took a decisive turn against Pyrrhus. Unexpectedly, a formidable army of 4,500 Daunians, staunch allies of Rome, stumbled upon the chaotic scene of battle. These Daunians, dispatched to Apulia to bolster the Roman consuls' forces, were blessed with a stroke of luck as they approached the conflict from the rear, their vantage point granting them a clear view of the tumultuous melee unfolding 2 miles ahead. Amidst the swirling dust and clash of arms, the Daunians initially struggled to discern the combatants amidst the chaos. Unperturbed by the confusion, they made a fateful decision to strike at what they believed to be the heart of the enemy's strength, Pyrrhus's camp. This strategic move exploited Pyrrhus's oversight in leaving only a scant contingent of soldiers to guard his camp, a decision likely influenced by his unawareness of the Daunian relief forces' presence in the vicinity. Upon realizing the imminent threat to his camp, Pyrrhus swiftly grasped the gravity of the situation. Despite the ongoing crisis on the front lines, he marshaled his available reserves, dispatching cavalry units and elephants to reinforce the camp's defenses. This rapid redeployment exposed a critical vulnerability in Pyrrhus's strategy. He temporarily weakened the Greek phalanxes on the front lines, leaving them susceptible to Roman flank attacks while diverting resources to protect his rear. The Greek phalanxes, though valiantly holding the line thus far, now faced the dual challenge of sustaining their position against the relentless Roman assaults, while coping with the strategic dilemma caused by Pyrrhus's decision to divert forces to counter the Daunian threat. As the flames engulfed Pyrrhus's camp, signaling the loss to the Daunian onslaught, the unfolding chaos on the battlefield reached a crescendo of violence and desperation. The cavalry and elephant handlers, initially dispatched to reinforce the camp's defense, were met with the grim reality of its destruction. In a swift change of plans, they redirected their fury towards the 3rd and 4th legions of Rome, which, buoyed by their recent victories, had surged ahead of the original Roman line of battle. The legionaries, caught off guard by the sudden onslaught of Greek horsemen and towering elephants, swiftly retreated into nearby woods atop a strategically advantageous hill. From their elevated position, the Roman soldiers unleashed a barrage of javelins and arrows upon the advancing Greek forces, their disciplined volleys wreaking havoc among Pyrrhus's troops. The challenging terrain and the Roman defensive advantage on the hill prevented Pyrrhus's men from effectively engaging the retreating legions, frustrating their attempts to break the Roman ranks. Compounding Pyrrhus's woes, his flank faced a grave threat as the Roman consuls seized the opportunity to exploit the chaos. Sensing an opening, Pyrrhus made the difficult decision to pull infantry units from the main battle line, diverting them to confront the Romans at his rear. This tactical maneuver aimed to contain the Roman advance and regain control of the battlefield. In response, the resourceful consuls dispatched additional cavalry reinforcements to reinforce their gains on the flank, further complicating Pyrrhus's attempts to stabilize the situation. As the momentum of the battle shifted to the area behind Pyrrhus's original position, the entire theater of war underwent a dramatic transformation. Recognizing the critical nature of the conflict unfolding near his ravaged camp, Pyrrhus swiftly redeployed the bulk of his remaining heavy infantry to bolster his defenses. This strategic maneuver aimed to counter the Romans' escalating aggression with a formidable wall of disciplined warriors. In response to Pyrrhus's defensive realignment, the Roman consuls, sensing an opportunity to press their advantage, committed additional cavalry and infantry units to the fray. The clash intensified with a renewed vigor as both sides poured their energies into the struggle, each fueled by a fervent desire to secure victory and drive the enemy from the battlefield. The chaotic din of battle echoed through the air, mingling with the shouts of commanders, the clash of weapons, and the thundering hooves of charging cavalry. The area around Pyrrhus's camp became the focal point of ferocious combat, with soldiers on both sides displaying unwavering resolve and martial prowess in the face of adversity. As the sun began its descent and darkness gradually enveloped the battlefield, the intensity of the conflict gradually subsided. Exhausted combatants paused to catch their breath, their ranks depleted and their spirits tested by the day's relentless carnage. With nightfall casting an ominous shroud over the blood-soaked field, the two opposing forces reluctantly disengaged, marking a temporary cessation to the hostilities. The Romans, having held their ground and inflicted considerable damage on Pyrrhus's forces, regrouped and made their way back across the river to their camp. In contrast, Pyrrhus's army, deprived of their ravaged camp and facing the challenges of the night, spent the evening under the open sky, their spirits tempered by the harsh realities of war. In the face of dwindling resources, Pyrrhus and his troops found themselves in a precarious situation. Despite their injuries, medical attention was scarce, resulting in several casualties overnight, including some of Pyrrhus's most skilled soldiers and officers. Pyrrhus himself had sustained a serious arm injury from a Roman javelin, a testament to his courageous, front-line leadership style that rivaled that of Alexander. Meanwhile, the Romans had also suffered significant losses and were currently recuperating in their camp. As night veiled the battlefield in an ominous cloak, Pyrrhus, undeterred by the day's setbacks, set about orchestrating a daring and strategic maneuver that would redefine the course of the conflict. With meticulous precision and unwavering discipline, he reorganized his battered forces under the cover of darkness, capitalizing on the element of surprise and leveraging the terrain to his advantage. The grueling process of repositioning an exhausted and battle-worn army in the dead of night spoke volumes about the discipline and dedication of Pyrrhus's troops. Despite the fatigue and chaos that typically accompany nighttime maneuvers, the soldiers of Pyrrhus's army executed their orders with remarkable efficiency, a testament to their training and the leadership of their seasoned commander. At the break of dawn, the astonished Roman forces, expecting a respite or perhaps a continuation of skirmishes, were instead confronted with a startling sight. Before them lay an open plain, meticulously chosen and prepared by Pyrrhus for the impending showdown. This strategic deployment caught the Romans off guard, placing them in a vulnerable position and presenting them with a stark choice: retreat and cede momentum to Pyrrhus, or stand their ground and confront him on terrain of his choosing. As the armies converged at Asculum, the stage was set for a pivotal clash that would determine the course of the conflict. Pyrrhus's strategic positioning compelled the Roman consuls to commit to battle, knowing that their fortunes hinged on the outcome of this decisive engagement. The battle commenced with a familiar sequence, mirroring the skirmishes of the previous day. The cavalries of both sides surged forward, their skilled riders engaging in swift and deadly skirmishes, probing for weaknesses and seeking to gain an early advantage. Meanwhile, the infantry formations on either side braced themselves for the impending clash, steeling their resolve and summoning their courage for the grueling battle ahead. As the infantry lines collided, the intensity of the fighting reached a crescendo. The Romans, renowned for their ferocious valor and disciplined formations, launched a determined assault against Pyrrhus's well-drilled phalanxes. However, despite their relentless efforts and unwavering bravery, the Roman legions found themselves outmatched by the disciplined cohesion and formidable tactics of Pyrrhus's infantry. The turning point came when the Roman legions, unable to dislodge the entrenched Greek forces, began to falter under the relentless pressure. Sensing the opportune moment, Pyrrhus unleashed a thunderous charge of his war elephants. The sight of these massive beasts crashing into their ranks instilled fear and chaos among the wavering Roman infantrymen, causing them to break ranks and flee in disarray. With the Roman formations shattered and in full retreat, the true horror of battle unfolded. Pyrrhus's pursuing cavalry, riding high on the momentum of victory, ruthlessly cut down many Romans as they attempted to flee the blood-soaked field. The clash culminated in a scene of carnage and devastation, with the ground littered with the fallen and the cries of the wounded and dying echoing across the battlefield. Historical accounts, drawing from Pyrrhus's own records of the battle, paint a grim picture of the casualties suffered. The Romans, reeling from the defeat, reportedly lost around 6,000 men, a staggering toll that underscored the ferocity of the conflict. In contrast, Pyrrhus's forces, while victorious, also paid a heavy price, with casualties numbering around 3,500, a testament to the brutal nature of ancient warfare and the sacrifices made in pursuit of victory. According to modern scholars, Pyrrhus of Epirus achieved a solid victory in the Battle of Asculum. While the number of casualties from his side was moderate, classical sources report that the Epirote king faced a challenging aftermath. The phrase Pyrrhic victory stems from an episode where one of Pyrrhus's generals congratulated him on his win. Pyrrhus responded with concern, "Another such victory, and I shall be undone." While the accuracy of the numbers reported by Hieronymus remains uncertain, it's plausible that Pyrrhus made this remark in a moment of emotional instability after the battle. Following Asculum, Pyrrhus decided to pause his wars against the Romans and instead accepted an invitation from Syracuse to fight against Carthage. He spent the next 2 years in Sicily, allowing the Roman Republic to replenish its resources and begin regaining control of its southern territories.